Good afternoon and welcome to the Western Cape IEC Nerve Centre in Bellville. It's been a fairly quiet day with little political activity in the Western Cape. Now, political parties have already wrapped up their election campaigns ahead of tomorrow. With all in place for election day, the SABC has also deployed journalists across the length and breadth of the province to bring you live coverage of the voting process. Now, our colleague in the Boland, Mariska Botha, reports that more than a year after a drawn-out violent farm workers' strike in the Cape Winelands district, life has returned to normal in the Hex River Valley. The small town of Dedorens was the epicenter of farm worker strikes in the region, but most people living in the valley are now looking forward to casting their votes tomorrow. To get a sense of the atmosphere in the Boland, let's cross to our colleague Mariska Botha. She's standing by in Worcester. Good afternoon, Mariska.
Good afternoon to you, Lukanyo.
Mariska, you've been in that area for a couple of days now. What's the atmosphere like?
Well, it's been an interesting few days for us. Last week when we were here and we spoke to people, there seemed to be a lot of apathy. But now I think it's as the day draws closer, people are becoming more excited. So certainly more people that we spoke to said they are excited about voting. They know exactly who they're going to vote for. And they're looking quite forward to casting their ballots. So right now, I'd say there's a lot of excitement in the Boland, and especially in Dedorens, where people say they are ready to go cast their ballots.
All right. Mariska, and what is the attitude of farm owners? Are they prepared to assist farm workers who might need transport to the voting stations?
We had the opportunity to speak to Michael Loubser yesterday. He's the chairperson of the Hex River Table Grape Association. And he told us that the farmers are actually keen to encourage their workers to go and vote. And he says, although it depends on farmer to farmer, where there are people that might need transport, he's certain that farmers will assist them. He also said that there's quite plenty of voting stations in the area, so it's easy accessible for people so they can walk to the voting station. But he says farm owners are keen to let their workers go vote on election day.
Right. Mariska, finally and very briefly, which parties are the main contenders in that region, and are any of the new kids on the political bloc visible in the Boland?
Well, I would say the main contenders is definitely the DA and the ANC, as it is much like it is in the rest of Cape Town especially. But we've also seen last week, we saw a couple of guys in their red berets from the EFF walking around, putting up posters. So they are also very, very visible there. But the main contenders, in my opinion, from what we've seen of the people electioneering and people talking on the ground, is the ANC and the DA.
Mariska, thank you very much. Let's leave it right there. We'll talk to you soon. Let's now turn our focus to the Cape Metropole. Now, service delivery issues are likely to influence voters in the Cape Metropole and surrounding informal settlements. Housing remains a great challenge and puts a strain on other services such as water and adequate ablution facilities. The city of Cape Town says access to land and urbanization are the biggest stumbling blocks to the expansion of housing. Now, almost 3 million people are registered to vote in the Western Cape. Nomawethu Solwandle visited Blackisdorp near Bellville and compiled this report on the living conditions of poor communities there.
A relocation camp made up of corrugated iron shacks. Blackisdorp has become instrumental in relocating residents from elsewhere in the city. Many living here refer to their community as a dumping ground for unwanted or homeless people from all over the city. Unemployment, drugs, and gangs are also a big problem here. With the bleak living conditions, there are mixed feelings amongst residents about voting.
All I want here in Blackisdorp, we stay in Blackisdorp. We just want to change here. We want houses, we want no more gangsters or rob people, who stay people, and it's just a corruption here.
I'm not sure if I will vote.
Just on the other side of Blackisdorp is Langa Township. The biggest problem here is backyard dwellers. Many come into the city in search of a better life.
I'm from Centane in the Eastern Cape. I came here in 1996 hoping to study. That did not happen, so I started looking for work. I haven't got a job either, and my life is just not working out.
The city says at present on its database, it has more than 275,000 applications. But the department's figures grow by more than 4,000 applicants every quarter. It says it's trying to improve the existing shack areas in order to make sure that the people do not only benefit with housing, but also economically. In the meantime, families living in areas such as Blikkiesdorp are hoping that their vote will lead them to a better life in future. Noma Tusolwandle, SABC News, Cape Town.
There. She's now standing by to tell us more about the living conditions of people and the general mood on the eve of the elections. Good afternoon, Nomawetu.
A very good afternoon to you, Lukanyo.
Nomawetu, can you tell us what is the mood like in Blikkiesdorp? Are people looking forward to voting tomorrow?
Well, Lukanyo, it's a very calm day down here in Blikkiesdorp ahead of election day tomorrow. There are about 20,000 people that live here that have either been evicted or relocated from various parts of the city. Now, what's really unique about Blikkiesdorp is that people of all races live here. And when we ask them just what life is like down here in Blikkiesdorp, they say they live in harmony. And what they mean about harmony is that there's no time to be fighting about race. There are just so many issues to deal with. HIV, AIDS, TB, drugs, gangs are just some of the issues that they're dealing with here. So race is not one of them at all. Now, political parties have come in and out of Blikkiesdorp campaigning ahead of election day tomorrow, making a whole lot of promises to these people. And I must tell you, these people are saying that they are definitely ready for change. But then again, it will be interesting to come here tomorrow to see just how many people are actually going to those voting stations. Now, Lukanyo, just driving into Blikkiesdorp, you can see the poverty. You can almost feel the distress of the people living here. You see young children playing around in the dusty streets. You see young people that should perhaps be at school themselves or be employed lurking around with nothing to do. And they say that those are the changes that they want to see. They're pinning their hopes on government to change their lives. Now, talking about tomorrow to them, whether they'll be voting or not, there have been mixed reactions from residents living here in Blikkiesdorp. We've got many people saying that they're excited about tomorrow because they still believe that it's only government that can change their lives. It's only government that can give them houses, toilets, that can give them jobs. But there's a group of people that they are saying that they've become so despondent to all these promises that they don't know what to do anymore. They don't know whether they'll be voting or not tomorrow. Lukanyo.
Right. Nomawetu, tomorrow it's also the last day, or at least today is the last day for special votes. Do you know if the elderly and the disabled have taken advantage of that service that is offered to them by the IEC?
Well, Lukanyo, like I said, it's a very normal day down here in Blikkiesdorp. We see young children coming from school. We see the people that aren't working just sitting around. We haven't seen much of people talking about voting or going into voting stations, or people or IEC people actually going into homes to make sure that the elderly actually vote before tomorrow. So we haven't seen anything of the sort at this stage.
So people will obviously head to the polls with a sense that they want to vote, a vote that will basically change their present living conditions. You spoke earlier on about jobs. You spoke earlier on about the youth sitting around with nothing really to do. How do you think they want their present living conditions to change?
Well, Lukanyo, the area Blickisdorp was formed around 2009, and it was formed with telling people that they'd live here for a little while before being moved to developed areas. And the people that have been living here for like 5 years with no basic services, basically living in abject poverty. And people living here say that they are definitely ready for change, Lukanyo.
Now, Mawetu, just finally, now some poor communities have, out of frustration, turned their backs on the democratic process. Have you experienced such cases in Blickisdorp in the time that you've spent there?
Definitely, Lukanyo, speaking to residents here, they say, some saying that they don't know whether they'll vote or not tomorrow. They've become so despondent that they've heard so many promises, political parties coming in and out of Blickisdorp saying that they will change their lives around, but they're still living under these conditions. They're still having to deal with crime, with gangs, with drugs, and they're basically living in abject poverty. So a lot of people that are despondent here in Blickisdorp because of their living conditions, but many saying that they will use their votes to change their lives around because they still believe that it lies with government. Government is the only institution that can actually get them out of these living conditions. Lukanyo.
Nomawetu, thank you very much. Unfortunately, we've got to leave it right there. Thank you very much. Well, our time is up, and that's all we have for you from the Western Cape.
Thank you, Lukanyo and the team, for that comprehensive coverage on the Western Cape elections.